Woo! Two more on this, on CCNA2. That's all we have. And this one's, think it's a short one. Look it. There's only three here, right? DHCP. We went over it already. Okay, so we're gonna go over DHCP servers, how DHCP works, and then how to make a router a DHCP server, how to make a router a DHCP client, and then DHCP version 6. All right, so let's jump into it right here. DHCP operation. In case you guys forgot, right? So it's dynamic allocation. I'm not going to talk about that because you guys are too far along in the program to not know that DHCP makes us not have to set IP addresses statically. So how does it work? Our client sends a broadcast, a DHCP discover, because this is going to hit. Maybe there's multiple DHCP servers, so maybe the least busy one is the one we want to hit. That's why it's a broadcast, right? To make sure it hits everyone. Okay, so then the server sends back a DHCP offer. Okay, now, so that's a unicast. Then the client broadcasts again, right? In case multiple servers got the first broadcast, and it says, hey, I found my IP address with this guy, and it says, all right, unicast back, I acknowledge that you're taking my address. But now here's where it changes. So remember, the DHCP request up here, or DHCP discover, and then the request was a broadcast. Now, on the lease renewal, it's a unicast. So after we're up there, we just do back to our same server, we do a unicast and a unicast, and everything's hunky-dory, right? Alright, so read through those if you don't remember those. Some of your DHCP can actually, you can put little extra stuff in it, like if you're doing access points and that stuff, you can read through this, but for the most part, you guys can probably see what it's going to give you, but once in a while you do have to put a special thing in, but you just do that at your server, and it's fairly easy. Okay, so configuring a basic DHCP server. Alright, so we start out by, if you see this, it says IP DHCP excluded addresses. Alright, okay. So we exclude those first because, well, we probably are assigned, hopefully, to an interface in our network, or we're not going to be able to find it, right? So this is us assigning R1 as a DHCP server. Okay, so I would say I'm in global config, and I say IP DHCP, can't remember, there's a dash in it, yep, excluded address. And what am I going to exclude? This is what I don't want my DHCP pool to assign, so maybe something like 192.168.1.1 if that was my address. That's it. I don't put a subnet mask, right? This is just, hey, don't assign that address. If I actually put a subnet address, like, I believe this would actually tell it to exclude all of that network, and so you would have no DHCP, so that'd be one reason your DHCP pool would not work. Alright, so that's the first part. Then our next part is we say IP DHCP pool. And then I think we put a pool name. So let's see what we have here. Pool name. Yep. So we say, I don't know, VLAN 10. And so then we say network for VLAN 10 is 192.168. Let's say it's 10.0. So we're going to put that I excluded 10.1. 10.0, 255.255.255.0, DNS server, or default router, so this is the default gateway, this would be another line, 192.168.10.1, why is it doing that? And then DNS server, I don't know, 8.8.8, okay, or whatever you want to put it as. That's all we really have to do for the DHCP. If that's our simplest setup. It just does that, and then it's going to just broadcast it out immediately because it knows, because if it's in the network we assigned, so if it's in right here, like network 10, if it has an interface in that, then it's going to accept that and start assigning DHCP, which actually I didn't mean to, but I picked that right there. And let's see if they have you. So if you didn't understand my commands, here you go. They're right here, and yep, it'll just be. That's how easy it is. That's all you have to do. Now there's a thing called the DHCP relay. So say our DHCP server actually lives. I don't like how they're saying, like, I don't know where they want us to go. We'll say our DHCP server. Now we'll just say it's still the same, right here, right? But we'll say this router is running everything, and for some reason we want this computer to come over here and get a DHCP. We want to go over the WAN and waste all this bandwidth. Well, from global config, we assign a DHCP relay, which what it does is, so remember that's a broadcast, and so when a router gets a broadcast, we assign it in this router. We'd say the relay is this router, and so this router, when it receives a broadcast for DHCP, it would send it boom, boom, here. And this is common, right, because you have your DHCP servers down here, right? So actually that's where it would be. So our DHCP servers down there, our broadcast is not going to broadcast into a different network. And so for this computer, we'd set a relay for this server. And for this router, we could set a relay for this server. And so what that does is when it gets a broadcast, it switches that broadcast into a unicast so that it can go across different networks and get a DHCP address and come back. How it does that is the command, let's see, IP helper address and the IP address of the server. So this IP helper address with the address of the server, that's the server address. Okay. Oh, and I guess we're not doing it from global. We do it from the interface level. So what interface would it be? It would be the one, if I'm on this computer, it's wherever we receive the broadcast. So there or there, right? Okay, and so that's just going to switch that back out. And if you read it right here, what it forwards to that when it gets that broadcast, or when it gets DHCP information, TACAX, DNS, DHCP. It's interesting. Okay, we're going to keep moving. So there's a lab to configure it on a router. So I'm now configuring a router as a DHCP client. It's really hard. We type IP address, and instead of putting an IP address, we put DHCP. That's it. That's all we need to know about that. Bam. Right there. IP address, DHCP. I can do it over here if you need it. Interface, G00. IP add. We usually go like this. Nope. We're going to do this. DHCP. So that would allow us to get a DHCP address. That's it. Okay. Configuring a SOHO router as DHCP for a client. I think you guys probably can figure out how to make a GUI into a DHCP because they usually do it by themselves. Alright. Troubleshooting DHCP. Usually, if we have a DHCP problem, we're going to get a 169. So we want to see, I don't know, show run, make sure we have an IP helper address, make sure the IP helper address is right, make sure the service DHCP is running on all new stuff. It's already running. Be sure the running config, I don't know, debug DHCP version 4. It usually just runs. There's very few times that you're going to have trouble with that. Alright, now here is the hard one. It's not really hard, but it's IP version 6, so we have Slack. So remember that means stateless address auto configuration, right? So that's where the router just assigns it automatically. Okay, so this PC1 sends a router solicitation, and then the router sends a router advertisement, and it gets an IP address. Okay, and that's through Slack. Now we can turn that off. but first we do IP version 6 unicast routing, right? All routers multicast, all nodes multicast, right? So the be like a FF02, FF01, right? So all nodes is FF01, all routers is FF02 multicast. And then they get their global multicast address, and ICMP checks for duplicate addresses, right? That's Slack. So the problem with that is Slack only gives you an IP address and a subnet, right? So what if we need other things? We get DHCP. So we have 3 different ways we can do DHCP for IP version 6. Slack, where the router just assigns a network address and the subnet, right? Default gateway, that kind of thing. Then we have stateless DHCP, which is where the router still does that job, but we have DHCP working as well. So stateless DHCP version 6 means we have the stateless auto configuration and DHCP version 6 running. So the DHCP version 6 is going to prescribe DNS, the DNS addresses, so that you can actually do web stuff or whatnot. Or we can just go full stateful, where it's just a DHCP version 6 server, probably the least common. So the Slack only option is no IP version 6 ND managed config flag, and no other config flag. Okay? If we type those into the interface, it is going to allow only Slack. Okay, then if we go to the stateless option, we put in IP version 6 ND other config flag, right? So that's saying we're going to do stateless, and we're going to do DHCP. Then stateful, we put in the managed config flag. So if we put in the managed means that we're going to get everything from a DHCP. And that is that. What do we have here? This is just how the DHCP works with the Slack and with the server. Take a look at that. Configuring a stateless. It is similar to, it's basically the same thing we did with IP version 4, just with IP version 6 addresses. Check it out. Maybe try setting up a DHCP version 6, DHCP for 6, like do this packet tracer skills challenge, and I bet it'll have version 6, or make one up for yourself. That was a short chapter. Maybe you have some questions. If you do, let me know. But I think DHCP is a pretty simple subject, and the configuration's really easy. Send me an email if you have any questions. Thank you.